And we're recording. Now I'll share my screen and we'll continue with chapter 3. All right, so we left off talking about assessing the newborn's health using the APGAR scale, looking at their heart rate, respiratory rate, reflex, muscle tone, skin color, and then they have these scales of 1 to 10. All right. So, natural or prepared childbirth. The techniques to reduce pain and medical intervention. You can take classes like Lamaze classes. You could learn relaxation and breathing techniques. You could have a labor coach who is your friend, a relative, or a trained doula. Um, so, what are the benefits of having social support or a doula? Shorter labors, fewer birth complications, reduced need for medication, and overall better health for the newborn. Home delivery, often handled by a certified nurse. These are midwives that are well trained attendants necessary to recognize and handle emergencies. But if there are complications, get your buns to a hospital. So, what are some common birth complications? Anoxia, um, anox, so opposite of oxygen. So, inadequate oxygen supply, breech position, buns first, may compress the umbilical cord. So throughout the labor process, there'll be some sort of fetal monitoring. They'll put a little suction cup through the up through the vagina vagina uh, to measure. That'll stick to the baby's cranium, and then it'll measure like the heart rate and keep track of the blood oxygen level. So then there's the labor and delivery medications, analgesics. The epidural is the most common. That's where they essentially plop a continuous dripping kind of syringe into your spinal cord, but it's just the lower half because of the way the CSF, the cerebral spinal fluid, travels. It doesn't actually go up. It just kind of keeps the medication down, so it from the hips down numbs it. And then there's local anesthetics as well. A cesarean delivery. It used to be rare, but now it's about a third of U.S. deliveries are done using the cesarean method. Does anyone not know what that is? Where they cut the woman's um, abdomen open and the uterus and pull the baby from there? I think everybody's pretty much familiar with that. Premature infants. So often I'll ask a question: what makes a an infant early or late? And the measure is 3 weeks or more, um, late or early. There are more complications with late than there are early, believe it or not. So we say that a premature infant is when they are born by 3 weeks or more, born early by 3 weeks or more, or weighing less than 5.5 pounds. And know also that birth weight is the best predictor of infant survival and healthy development. So preterm is when you're born weeks before the due date. Smaller weight may be appropriate for the length of pregnancy. 1 to 2 more weeks in the womb greatly reduces the rates of illness. Small for date. Now, this means that you are, even if you're early, um, you are smaller than what should have been at that time. So you could be on time and still be lightweight, and then you would still be small for date. So below the expected weight, considering the length of pregnancy, this may be full term or preterm, and it's usually due to inadequate nutrition before birth. Um, and usually there are more serious problems, especially if the child is also preterm. So we said that the age of viability is somewhere around 26 weeks, and you can see that in the yellow they're showing you the percentage of children born prematurely, and then the yellow is when they're discharged alive from the hospital. And so at 23, only 30% on average. At 24 weeks, 50%, 25, 60%, and 26, 80%. And then you can see after 26, it kind of holds um, at 90. But you can see in the red, the moderate to severe disability drops significantly in these critical 3, 4 weeks. So interventions for preterm infants, put them in one of those, what are those things called? The Christina, what's that warming chamber called? The incubator, right? The temperature controlled isolette. Um, may require a feeding tube or a respirator. Um, some other things, special stimulation like gentle rocking, auditory stimulation. We're going to talk about that soon, and what the benefits to brain development are when they're exposed to different kinds of sounds. Kangaroo care or touch, um, so holding the child to your skin. Also, there are benefits in just training the parents on how to caregive. And then if it's severe enough, there may be long-term intensive intervention. So this is neat. So what they had done is they had exposed half of, in this one study, exposed half of these newborns who were born preterm to just regular hospital noises that were recorded. They recorded them, and then they'd play them on a loop to these preterm newborns. And then they did the same thing with the other half, but instead of it being just regular hospital noises of people talking and clicking things and whatever, it was just the mother's voice. And what they found was that when they looked at the left and right auditory cortices, they were thicker. They had developed um, more robust, which suggests the role of um, the caregiver's influence on our central nervous system development just by listening to our mother. Well, the thing is that they're recognizing from this study, they're recognizing that the baby is sensitive to the mother's sounds while in the womb, and so they see it as a way to thrive, as being safe and so on. Infant mortality. These are the number of deaths in the first year of life per 1,000 births. We find in the US that we rank 39th in the world. Neonatal mortality, this is within the first month of life, dying. Um, the second highest contributor is low birth weight, and this is largely preventable. So this is why we are constantly getting checkups and monitoring using ultrasounds and so on to make sure that our babies are growing as they should. So prevention efforts include good nutrition, high quality medical care, social economic supports, and paid job protected employment leave. So look at where we are. We're way down here. An average of 5.9 deaths per 1,000 live births. Let's see what's at the top. I think it was Japan was at the top. I can't see it because my screen thing's in the way. Maybe it'll go up. But what do you think should be? Let me just do this. If you had to guess, what would you think would be one of the top nations? I mean, I would have thought the United States, but that's just not the case. Anybody want to guess what one of the top 10 are?
Norway.
Let's see. Norway's number 3. Why'd you come up with Norway? Where'd you come up with that?
Because they have a lot of benefits for parents when it comes to paid leave. I think they get a year, maybe. I could be wrong, but they get a year of paid maternity leave, both parents.
Anybody else want to guess one? That's number 3. Japan is number 1.
Maybe Sweden.
Sweden is number 5. Good guess. What else?
Did I see Malta?
Did you see Malta? Yeah, Malta's in there. They're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Oh, they're 15.
Yeah, we got
France and Italy.
France is like number 10. Italy is like number 9. Spain, I might be miscounting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Spain is 7. Italy's 8. France is 9. Germany's 10. Iceland's number 2.
Can I ask a question that's kind of on topic but slightly off topic?
Of course.
Is abortion rates taken into our mortality rate
No,
for the United States? No?
no, no,
Okay.
no. Good question. Because that would make a big difference, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because cultures that don't,
Oh, yeah.
you know, that isn't a standard practice is obviously gonna.
Yep. No. Nope.
Okay.
That's definitely not in a part of this.
Okay.
Good point, though. Good way to think outside just to make sure that the data is accurate. So we talked about some newborn reflexes. We know that they have an adaptive value, though, right? They aid in our survival. So what we say is that when we're developing, we develop in a cephalocaudal, which means head to tail, and proximodistal arrangement, meaning our head and neck are more, they develop faster than our abdomen and lower extremities, essentially. So we're able to move our head um, in a coordinated fashion before we're able to move our legs. And that's for obvious reasons, right? This is so we can feed, right? So if a baby can't, do a good job quickly of strengthening the neck muscles and coordinating them to latch onto something, whether a nipple of some kind, right? So it aided in our survival. And the proximodistal, the reason why is because they want to be able to turn their shoulders and move them with the head to direct their mouths to where it's got to be. And so the fingers and the toes are last to develop. So these reflexes also evoke interactions from our caregivers. That they can do certain things, they can draw attention. And we were just talking about motor development. So some newborn reflexes and their functions. The eye blink, of course, is going to protect the infant from strong stimulation, not just like wind, not just like protecting the eyes. They'll blink also for loud noises. And it actually dampens the auditory input from a nervous system level. It protects the inner ear and rooting, where the infant will turn the head towards a source of stimulation on the cheek, try to get it in its mouth. Sucking, obviously, it's going to have that in order, like immediately, in order to receive nutrition. Moro is an embracing motion. So it's thought that in our evolutionary past, it may have helped the infants cling to their mother. The palmar grasp, it prepares the infant for voluntary grasping. Tonic neck, where the infant lies in a fencing position, kind of like to the side like this. Again, may prepare the infant for voluntary reaching by being able to, like in the arm is out like this, again for reaching. Stepping prepares the infant for voluntary walking. The Babinski reflex, where you tickle the foot and and the toes will fan out and curl like this, and then curl as the foot twists when the sole of the foot is stroked, and the function is unknown. I would think that this would also be left over from our ancestors who had used their toes to kind of cling even further. Like they would actually grab on like a hand, because our ancestors, our feet would have been more like our hands, an extension, to be able to grab onto things. Like think of non-human primates. So the infant states of arousal, we have REM, non-REM, so sleep. Then we have drowsiness, quiet alertness, and then waking activity could be cooing, could be just making noise, but also crying. So the sleep states, the rapid eye movement, that REM sleep. The brainwave activity is similar to a waking state, just like an adult. The newborns spend more time in REM than ever again. So when we're first born, like on the first day out of the womb, we spend like 23 out of 24 hours sleeping. And the majority of that sleep is in REM. But as we age, our time sleeping goes down, and so does the percentage of our REM compared to non-REM. And this is believed to support the nervous system development. I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense because what happens during REM? It just says right there, the brainwave activity is similar to when we're awake. So what it's doing is it's making connections while we're sleeping. It means we're working our central nervous system is organizing and working while we're sleeping. And so once it's organized, we don't need to spend as much time doing it. Non-rapid eye movement, the body is almost motionless. The heart rate, breathing, and brain activity slow and even. So it's not like the REM, like our dream states. And these can help identify central nervous system abnormalities. What does it mean? It means that if the infant's not having a lot of REM, there's not a lot of brain activity, and it's a lot of that slow, even brain activity, then it suggests that there isn't appropriate development. Infant crying. They have a unique vocal signature. You've heard this about penguins and stuff, right? How penguins will leave and then they'll leave all the young fledgling penguins to kind of hang out while they're going to get food. And then the penguins, their I don't want to call them children because they're not children, but their offspring have a very unique characteristic signature in the way they make a like, and the parents can find them. So why does an infant cry? Usually it's due to physical needs. They're uncomfortable. So some common soothing techniques: talking softly, rhythmic sounds, giving them a pacifier. You can massage them, swaddle them, which means to kind of wrap them up kind of tight, mimicking what it would be like in the womb again. Hold on the shoulder and rock or walk. Go for a ride in a car, putting them in a swing, one of those little baby swing things. SIDS, the mysterious tragedy of sudden infant death syndrome. It's the leading cause of infant mortality in the industrialized nations. Victims often show early problems, irregularities, impairments, or infections. How do we reduce the incidence of SIDS? By no longer smoking or using drugs while pregnant, or after pregnant. Place the infants to sleep on their backs. Use a pacifier. Provide a firm sleep surface. Avoid these soft beddings. The newborn sense of touch. It's well developed at birth. It says it stimulates early physical growth and it's vital for emotional development. It stimulates early physical growth because every time we touch something, it's sending signals to our brain, to our somatosensory cortex, right, at the front of the parietal lobe, and our brain has to interpret that stimulation. So it's causing neurons to fire. Used to investigate their world, of course. Remember, Piaget said that the first stage of our cognitive development is, he called it sensor-motor, where our body senses, our physical senses of smell, taste, touch, sound, all these things, sight, coordinate with our physical movements. Now, newborns are highly sensitive to pain. We can use anesthetics, sugar solutions, breast milk, and touch to ease pain. We see this with adults as well, touch. In one study, they had women, I forgot what they did, like they shocked their foot or made it really cold, or I think they shocked it. Then they had different people touch the woman's shoulder, and then they followed like her brain's activity or something to determine when she was starting to feel better, even though the shocking had continued. So they had a stranger touch her shoulder and it actually dropped. Then they'd have the husband touch the shoulder and it dropped significantly more. And then they'd have what they called a super couple partner touch her shoulder. And that these are people who are a romantic couple who are like super they're like intense. They are, what's the word I'm looking for? Close. They are, I think it starts with an I. Intimate. Super intimate. Intimacy means not just sexual, but it means like you're very, very close. And her levels of pain threshold and experiencing pain went down to like a tenth of what it was originally. Whereas just a regular old husband brought it down to like maybe a 60% of what it was. So as babies, we do this too. The newborn sense of taste and smell. They have preferences present at birth, and these are obviously going to be key for survival because they have these preferences for things that are high in fat and high in sugar, right? The sweets, and then the breast milk over formula because they're high in fat and sugar. The amniotic fluid from the mother's diet influences the newborn's preferences. Um, there was some study where they had women eat, there was something like garlic or something the day before she gave birth, and the newborn, the I don't know what you'd call it, the chemicals within that make up parts of the experience of garlic somehow penetrated into the amniotic fluid, and the infant would recognize it like when it was born, like during that first day of life. So they can locate odors and identify the mother by the smell. Newborn sense of hearing, they can hear a wide variety of sound patterns. They prefer complex sounds to pure tones. Now, pure tones are just, me kind of thing. They can distinguish sound patterns at only a few days old. They're sensitive to the mother's voice, human speech, and as we know, we are biologically prepared to learn language. We innately have a mechanism to develop language, so we're highly sensitive to not just any old sound, but human language. The newborn sense of vision, it's least developed sense. It's the least developed sense at birth. I think the range is about 8 inches at birth, but it develops quickly beyond, it develops quickly after that. They're unable to see long distances or focus clearly. They can scan the environment and track moving objects, but only when they're very close. They prefer bright light over gray, but they don't discriminate colors. The color vision becomes adult-like after about 4 months. Hormonal changes. So what happens to the parents, not just the mother, the father also. The mother, from her pituitary gland, will release more oxytocin. This is necessary for uterine contractions, milk production, and it says caregiving, maternal behavior. That is oxytocin, which is released from the posterior pituitary, as well as vasopressin. When these two combo platter number 3, when they both come out, when they're both released, we have significant elevations in bond formation. So it's clever because we evolved over time to have one hormone that's necessary not only for giving birth, sustaining life, but also for caregiving. All 3 things from one hormone. The father, you see a rise in prolactin. We don't lactate, not really, and a rise in estrogens and a drop in androgens. We're talking about drop in testosterone and 5-alpha dihydrotestosterone, and this results in a positive emotional reaction and a sensitivity to the infant. So there's not just hormonal changes in the mother, there are also hormonal changes in the father. So when it comes to foster and adoptive mothers, simply holding and interacting with an infant will release oxytocin. Again, this aids in that bonding. So, of course, when we first have a kid, there's a lot of adjustments, right? New roles. I am now mother. I am now father. I am now sister. I am now brother. Change schedule. I am now getting up. I am now trying to sleep. I am now getting up. I am now, staying with the kid while you go do the thing, and then you stay with the kid, and I'll go do the thing, and right. It's got a lot of organization. Sleep deprivation. Oh my Lord. I would say that the number one problem that my wife and I had with our children, and it wasn't all of them, but I would say the number one problem that we had was sleep deprivation. And I remember there was a stretch of, I don't know, maybe a week for one of them, and it was probably James. James was a terrible baby. Where I felt like I was going nuts. We just weren't sleeping. And it just was so crazy. And then finally, I don't know what happened. I think we just decided, all right, look, one of us has to sleep. You go first, kind of thing. And we just kind of separate. And then, of course, there's the stress. How are we going to take care of this thing? How are we going to, coordinate our schedules to make sure that it's always tended to, and yet we still have money to survive? And where are we going to, how are we going to travel with this baby? And, who can see? A lot of stuff, a lot of stress. to stop recording. Does anyone have any questions before I stop recording related to the topic? Okay, quiz will go up at 4 p.m. today, closes midnight Sunday.